This Saturday, it's the FA Cup final, and it's the first ever FA Cup final between Man United and Man City. In fact, it's the first major final, correct me if I'm wrong, Laurie, between these two clubs ever.
That is correct, yes. They were in the FA Cup semi-final in 2011, which was at Wembley, and that was quite a tasty experience. And so, therefore, in advance of that, the authorities have said that coaches taking the rival supporters down to London have to use different service stations. Whether or not they will do, I don't know. But I'm driving down myself on Saturday, so I might have to follow that
protocol.
Yeah, and hopefully avoid any trouble.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
I wonder if they'll toss a coin so that see who gets to pick their favourite service station.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's already been assigned by sort of Great Manchester Police, and kind of funnily, the Man City route that's been advised is a much longer route, so they have to kind of go across the Pennines and then down the M1. So I don't know if they're actually going to oblige that, but it's funny that they've tried.
Big question beyond that is whether United can stop the treble and get themselves a cup double. Laurie, but mostly stop the treble. What do you think?
Yeah, that's the big one, isn't it? I mean, Erik Ten Hag mentioned it as soon as they'd got past Brighton in the semi-final. I mean, he was asked about it, but he very much ran into that kind of narrative. And then he mentioned it again on the pitch after the Fulham game on Sunday, sort of revving up the crowd, and the atmosphere was quite striking, actually, I thought. And maybe that's in his attempt to plant the seed in the minds of his players that we can actually do this. But the treble is it's United's big thing, isn't it? The only English team to have ever done it. As you referenced earlier, Inter have done it for Italy, but there's only a few teams in Europe that have managed it across the whole however many hundreds of years of football. So that's the big. I mean, I think United fans have come to terms with City doing this at some stage because they've been knocking on the door for a few years, haven't they? I mean, they've got to a final previously. They keep winning the Premier League. They keep winning cup competitions. So you sort of think it's going to happen at some stage. But I think United, for them to be able to actually stop it happening right now, would be a huge, huge thing. And it recalled to mind a little bit, the 2018 derby when City could have won the Premier League title officially against United at the Etihad, and it was kind of a wild atmosphere, and they were loving it 2-0 up at half time, and United came back to win. And it's small crumbs, really. I mean, United should be bigger than this, but I think the idea that they can actually still lay claim to being the only team to have won the treble will be huge. I think already United fans are actually also kind of trying to explain how their treble would still be better, whatever happens. Obviously, 99 was very dramatic. There was lots of jeopardy involved. The Premier League title went down to the final day. There was comeback victories. And it was a different sort of sport, wasn't it? A different landscape then. So I think they're already laying the foundation for the inevitable, which would be a City win on Saturday.
And there is, of course, historical precedent. 1977, FA Cup final. Liverpool are already league champions. They've got the European Cup final to come 4 days later. Who are they up against in the final? Manchester United. Opportunity to prevent Liverpool from winning what would have been the first ever treble in English football. And they did. They won 2-1 with possibly the worst ever winning goal in an FA Cup final. Lou Macari, who has a shot that is flying miles wide, hits Jimmy Greenhoff on the chest and loops into the net. United win 2-1.
Liverpool worse than your goal at Stretford End, Tom?
I mean, it was... probably as bad. As bad. I put them on a similar level. And 4 days later, Liverpool went on and won their first European Cup. So United have spoilt the treble bid of a big rival.
Weed
in
on the
past,
chips of a big rival.
In the exact same circumstances.
Good Lord. Well, this time around, I noticed you said, Laurie, that it's inevitable a City win. It's all about the big man up front, isn't it? I'm talking about Wout Weghorst, of course. Is he going to be leading the line for United, given the injury situation?
I don't know. I mean, he started 19 games in a row after signing, like straight away into the team. Had one training session, and then it was just a kind of continuous cycle of him starting these games. He scored 2 goals for United. He still hasn't scored in the Premier League. Obviously, he won't do for United. He missed a good chance at Fulham, and he kind of collapsed to the turf. And you could see the pain on his face because this for him, he knows this is beyond whatever he could possibly have dreamt. To be competing in these kind of games, so he's kind of trying to milk it for every moment he can. I mean, Anthony Martial's injury, perhaps isn't a surprise when you look at his career recently, but it's still was a bit of a shock, I suppose, when it was confirmed this week that he wouldn't be in the game. Anthony also looks like a serious doubt for the game. So yeah, the options are actually getting minimal. It's basically Marcus Rashford up front or Wout Weghorst. So it depends whether Erik Ten Hag wants Rashford kind of in his better position, which is off the left, maybe up against Kyle Walker, or he thinks actually, can put Wout Weghorst on up front again. We were talking off air, weren't we, about the famous 2012 derby. Mario Balotelli revealing the T-shirt "Why Always Me" in relation to 2011-12. I kind of have it in my mind as 2012 just because that was the title. That 6-1 win. Basically,
that was the difference, the goal difference, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was goal difference. United trying to chase it and get back level and conceding 3 goals late on. And obviously Balotelli, why always me? Because he'd been in the news, hadn't he, for his firework party. Maybe there's some more fireworks to come. I don't know. Sorry, that's a very bad.
No, absolutely works. I had that to go next as well. Charlie.
On this game?
Oh, no, I thought you were about to say something. If not, sit back and enjoy. As I ask about the other big man up front, that Erling Haaland fellow, who, good Lord. In that 6-3, because they met 2 times already this season in the league, these 2 teams. 2-1 most recently for Man United at Old Trafford in mid-January. But back at the Etihad, you had the highest scoring derby in Manchester of all time. City's 6-3 win, featuring 3 goals and 2 assists from the giant Norwegian fella, Meat Slab.
Yeah, that was a day that looked like there was light years between Man City and Man United. Maybe there still is, over the course of the season. Was it 14, 15 points they finished ahead? But United were terrorised by City that day. Kevin De Bruyne was incredible. Phil Foden scored a hat-trick as well, and you kind of forget that was when you thought he was going to cement his status in the team, and actually Jack Grealish was the one to come through. But yeah, Haaland, I think you can sense that he will particularly enjoy if he's able to make the defining factor in this game on Saturday. The whole idea that, as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has recently spoken about, that he recommended him to United when he was at Mulder and 4 million and what could have been. I don't know. I think back on it and just the influence of his father Alfie and would he ever really have allowed that? It seems like it's a good match for them at the moment at City and Haaland, he's had a season like no other, hasn't he? If he can top it off with some kind of winning goal in Wembley against these sides, I'm sure he'll be absolutely thrilled.
Is this going to be a good game after the matches? Mondays wasn't great. We'll get onto that very shortly. The League One playoff final. Wednesdays was, what it was.
We can perhaps console ourselves with the thought that it couldn't conceivably be any worse.
We said that on Monday, actually.
Roma Sevilla.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure.
Or longer.
Or longer. So there's that. This is one of the many examples of this very long season having featured matches that I'd completely forgotten about. But when these 2 teams last met in January at Old Trafford in the league, United won with that extremely controversial Bruno Fernandes goal when Marcus Rashford was played through and then sort of stepped away from the ball at the last minute, and Fernandes came in and scored. And I think that left United and City relatively close. I think there was about 5 points between them in the table at the time, albeit this is before Guardiola had landed on the magic formula of John Stones stepping into midfield, Jack Grealish on the left wing, etc., etc. So it was a different kind of City team. But, recent evidence at least of United being able to compete with and, even defeat City, albeit in controversial circumstances. So, obviously City are favourites. I think that makes a lot of sense. But the recent history of the Manchester derby has thrown up quite a lot of surprising results.
City looking to become the first team since Bury 120 years ago to win this competition without conceding a single goal along the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, but actually what's especially interesting about that league game is that United came from behind to win. Normally when City go ahead, it's sort of game over, and I do slightly feel at Wembley on Saturday, if they do go ahead, I think for it to be an interesting game, you really want United to get the first goal. Otherwise, there is a chance City will just go into that sort of lockdown mode where they strangle you and squeeze the space, and it becomes extremely difficult. But obviously, United did come from behind to win at Old Trafford. But yeah, I think for the sake of the game, it needs that. United to make a good start and for them to really believe in it. Because I think this City team, how confident they are right now, it could be a bit comfortable if they go ahead early.
I do generally think the players believe. I mean, it was the annual award ceremony on Monday night, and Ten Hag, people that spoke to him, he was just very, very calm. I mean, this was before Martial had been confirmed out, so maybe that's changed things. But he was, what have we got to worry about? We've beaten them already once this season, and also previous seasons. Solskjaer had a bit of a formula for beating Guardiola's team, and it is clearly a case of soaking up pressure and hitting on the counter. Really, it was obviously the Casemiro pass, wasn't it, for aimed for Rashford, that fell to Fernandes that started that, and then the second goal as well was a counter. So yeah, I think they've got the players that can do it, but they need to be absolutely perfect for it to come off. And you saw at the Etihad, as James said earlier, that if they're not on it for I don't know, a couple of minutes, then City can get the tails up and just absolutely submerge them.
All right. Huge game then on Saturday. Laurie, just briefly, any takeover news? Where are we with that? With the season now finished and the summer transfer window fast approaching?
Yeah, I think we are advancing. There's Sheikh Jassim's bid, obviously, but also Shadim Ratcliffe's bid, and I think that's the favoured one at the moment. We've reported last week that there's been talks held where it's been implied that he feels like he's going to get the club ultimately, but it's still not been decided as far as I'm aware. I don't think anyone's sort of said yes, you've got it, but I think they're kind of putting the building bricks in place to potentially take over. But then at the same time, they are progressing with transfer talks, looking at targets, speaking to clubs and players, so that they're kind of acting like business as usual. And
which players, Laurie? Which players?
We were just done one on Rasmus Højlund, who is the Atalanta striker. He's 20, so I think Ten Hag wants a younger striker ideally, as well as an experienced one, and maybe Charlie and I will discuss a certain Harry Kane later. But
we'll talk about him now if you like.
We can talk about him now if you want.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where you're coming from, Laurie, but I don't think he'll go this summer just because he's on a free next year. I can't see United, and you'll know this better than me, really knowing that he's on a free next year, them making an offer that Levy can't refuse. I'd be really surprised if that happened. So I think it will kind of suit everyone for Kane to see out his contract rather than go this summer.
Yeah, that would be my gut as well. I mean, Kane is the one that Ten Hag ultimately wants. I think he's been absolutely convinced of that. And look at his season, 30 goals in the Premier League in that Spurs side. Even though he's 29, that is absolute quality. But I agree with you that the money situation at United is tight. They can't just go and spend whatever they want. They have to sell really to buy in a big way. So that's why I think they're looking at a striker like Højlund. There's Randall Kolomuani as well at Frankfurt, but I think their price is high. So I think Højlund, perhaps if they do go for a younger one, he would be the one because he's a bit more. He's a bit less expensive than Muani. But yeah, there's Mason Mount as well. They've held talks over him. So Ten Hag also wants a kind of mobile number 8. So they're the two positions that are the priorities at the moment.
All right. Hello there. If you've enjoyed this video, why not subscribe to this channel? The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.